You spray a weed with kitchen vinegar. By afternoon, it's brown, curled, dead-looking. Victory. You film it, you believe it. Then 2 weeks later, that same weed is back, greener and taller than before. The vinegar was real. The kill was a lie the edit never showed you. So which of these garden hacks are pure theater? Why did they look like they worked? And what actually moves a plant? Here's the thing nobody says out loud. Almost every gardener has tried one of these tricks and watched it work. You sprinkled something in a hole and the plant perked up. You sprayed something on a leaf and the bug problem eased. So you believed. What you didn't see is that plants perk up on their own after a good watering, bugs come and go on their own, and a hot afternoon browns a lot of things. The camera loves a fast before and after. The plant lives on a slower clock than the edit does. Two things happening close together is not the same as one causing the other, and that single confusion is the engine behind almost every viral garden hack. Because the real decisions a plant makes don't happen where the camera points. They happen underground, in the roots, in the water moving through them, and in the invisible crowd of microbes around them. The leaf is just the billboard. It shows you what the roots decided days ago. Keep that in mind, and the 7 big ones fall apart quickly. Start with Epsom salt. A scoop in every planting hole, and supposedly your tomatoes explode and your blossom end rot vanishes. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sits at the center of the green pigment in every leaf, so the logic sounds airtight. But here's the catch. It only helps if your soil is actually short on magnesium, and most garden soil isn't, especially if you use compost. Extension trials from places like North Dakota State found no bump in yield or fruit size from adding it to soil that wasn't deficient. Worse, blossom end rot isn't a magnesium problem at all. It's a calcium delivery problem, usually caused by uneven watering, and magnesium and calcium compete to get into the plant, so piling on Epsom salt can actually make the rot slightly more likely. That's the part people miss. What works instead is dull and free. Water deeply and evenly, mulch to keep the moisture steady, and test your soil before you add anything. Now eggshells. Crushed shells in the hole for calcium. Same promise, stop the rot. Eggshells are almost pure calcium carbonate, so again, the chemistry looks right. The problem is time. A coarse shell can sit in the soil for a year or more before it breaks down enough to release anything, and extension studies have found no measurable rise in available calcium after a full season. The shell is real calcium, but on your plant's timeline, it might as well be a pebble. And since the rot was a watering issue anyway, the shells were never going to fix it. Save them for the compost, ground fine, where they help slowly over years. Coffee grounds get the same treatment. Sprinkle them to acidify soil for blueberries and hydrangeas, or use them as a strong free fertilizer. Here's what surprises people. Used grounds are close to neutral, around 6.5 to 6.8. The acid you taste in your cup is water soluble, so it ends up in the coffee, not the grounds. Extension offices from Oregon State to Minnesota have said grounds won't reliably shift your pH, and fresh grounds worked into soil can briefly tie up nitrogen as microbes chew through them, which leaves seedlings paler, not greener. Grounds are a fine compost ingredient in thin layers. They are not a shortcut. If you truly need acidic soil, that's what elemental sulfur is for. Notice the pattern. None of these are outright lies. Each has a grain of truth that got stretched into a promise. That's what makes them so convincing, and it's exactly where the sprays go wrong too. Take dish soap as a homemade bug spray, often mixed with beer and poured on the lawn for good measure. Real insecticidal soap exists and it works, but it's a specific thing. Potassium salts of fatty acids made to sit on a leaf without harming it. Dish soap is not soap in that sense. It's detergent, built to strip grease, and that same power strips the waxy coat that protects a leaf. Extension programs from Colorado State to Clemson warn it can burn foliage, and it isn't a registered pesticide for a reason. For aphids and mites, either blast them off with plain water or use an actual insecticidal soap at the labeled 1 to 2% in the cool of evening, tested on a few leaves first. You already know the vinegar story. Household 5% vinegar is a contact burn, nothing more. It scorches the top growth it touches, but it does not travel down into the roots. So annual seedlings die, and every established perennial simply pushes new growth back within days. The stronger 20% horticultural vinegar carries an EPA danger label and can burn your eyes and skin, so it's no gentle kitchen swap. For cracks and paths, boiling water or a flame weeder reaches the crown. In beds, mulch and hand-pulling win. Then hydrogen peroxide, sold as the thing that revives a dying plant or cures root rot. Here's the quiet reality. Peroxide breaks down into water and oxygen almost the moment it hits soil. It gives a brief puff of oxygen, then it's gone. It is not fertilizer, and it does not raise the dead. Used too often or too strong, it burns the very root tips you're trying to save and kills off helpful soil life. Root rot is an overwatering and drainage problem. Fix the pot and the watering first. If you must, a one-time drench of drugstore peroxide cut half and half with water, never repeated, is the ceiling. Last, the biggest one in the whole feed, a spoonful of sugar or molasses that supposedly triples your plants in a week. A quick word about that sugar. Plants make their own sugar from sunlight. They can't drink it up from the soil, so pouring sweetened water around them doesn't feed the plant. What molasses does feed is the microbes, and it does cause a fast population boom. But once they eat through the sugar, that boom collapses just as fast, and nothing tripled. It has a modest, honest use as a carbon source in an aerated compost tea a couple of times a year. That's the whole story. No spoonful is doing what those thumbnails claim. Here's what ties every failure together. It's rarely that the ingredient is too weak. It's the wrong ingredient for the real problem, or the right idea used at the wrong time and dose. Slow inputs like shells and coffee, applied mid-season, can't arrive in time. Repeat peroxide and soap sprays in the same spot quietly wipe out the microbes doing the real work. And chasing a symptom with a rescue drench ignores that a plant with rotted roots has nothing left to rescue. Timing and the root zone are the whole game. So what actually moves a plant? The boring winners. A soil test, so you're feeding what's missing instead of guessing. Deep, even watering, and a few inches of mulch, which prevents most of the rot and stress people spray for. Compost, to build living soil. A balanced feed at transplant and early growth, when heavy feeders like tomatoes and peppers are actually building. Sulfur, not coffee, when you genuinely need acidity. None of it films well, all of it works. And that gap between what looks dramatic and what quietly succeeds is the whole reason the hacks keep spreading. That weed from the beginning? It's gone now. Not sprayed, not filmed, not dramatic, just buried under 4 inches of wood chips that never let it see light again. The plant never cared how expensive the bottle was or how fast the leaves browned. It answered to water, timing, and patience. If evidence-backed gardening is why you're here, stay close. Next time, the pantry items that actually earned their place.